Hello, my name is Patrick McGonigal. I am a graduate student at Montana State University in the Land Resources and Environmental Sciences program. I also have my undergraduate in civil engineering from Montana State. I'm also a wildland firefighter with the U.S. Forest Service, and as it is June, most of the West is at risk of wildfire, and I'm currently completing smoke jumper training here in Missoula, Montana, in hopes to take the next step of my fire career and be a little more proactive by parachuting from aircraft into fires before they go large, being able to save a lot of these drainages, sensitive areas from the extreme effects of wildfire, especially in a changing climate. I apologize for not being able to give this talk to you in person. I will provide some contact information in the folder from which you've accessed the link to this YouTube video so that you can refer questions to me. I'll also reply to you as I'm able around my fire schedule in the summer. I usually work 14 days on and then 2 days off, so it might be a while before I get back to you, but I will do what I can. I'm currently a smoke jumper candidate, which means this is my 5th year in fire. I have 2 years on the hotshot crew and then 2 years on engine crews around Montana. I really like wildland fire. I've had more fun with it at the moment than civil engineering. Someday I'll be an actual civil engineer, but I haven't found a position that will work around this fire summer. And also, civil engineers tend to not use chainsaws for at least 10 or 15 hours a week, which I think might be a requirement for my future job. So it might be a little less large of an organization wherever I find myself, but I also like to be more proactive, and I like to be a boots on the ground type person. To make myself more hireable, I'm receiving this master's degree in land resources and environmental sciences, graduating in December. I hope that'll make me be able to design more with my civil background in a more ecologically cognizant way. I like fire because I see that it's an absolute shift in the status quo of wild lands. Most people don't experience nature to the point where a lot of these wildlands are just kind of a nebulous area that no one goes. It's the wild, it's the wilderness, and very few people are privileged enough to have the time and the resources to be able to get back in some of these places. But these places that seem static when there's a wildland fire going through, they become fantastically dynamic. And in reality, for the ecologically sensitive people, nature is always that dynamic and interconnected, but it's unfortunate that it seems to take a wildfire for the public and the perception around society to really understand how these natural cycles work and how dramatic the shifts may be when resources are ignored for the majority of that time, especially for management industries such as logging. However, our reaction to fire, it makes for good news stories and some crazy video, but our reaction to fire may not be as ecologically cognizant as it could be. Historically, this year is the 75th anniversary of Smokey the Bear, and historically the protocol for the smoke jumpers in the Forest Service was that when a fire was detected, it was out by 10 a.m. the next morning. That was a mandate. So 75 years of fire suppression has led in part to the extreme fire we see today, as well as the public perception that any smoke is bad smoke, and this kind of helps the idea of prescribed fire to be more difficult, less palatable than would otherwise we would like to see on the ecology side of things. But so people don't want their homes under threat, and they think that smoke and fire are scary, when usually we can work with them pretty well. But fire in the built environment requires a discussion of two variables: the risk assessment of that fire and the response to that fire. And as a civil engineer, it's been interesting to me to see how my studies have progressed from what I thought was a simple engineering problem, which is hill slope erosion after a forest fire. But this has led me to investigate a much larger picture. It's also an economics problem as much as an engineering problem, as much as an ecology problem. And the benefit of being an actual wildland firefighter, boots on the ground, is that I've been able to see how a lot of this work plays out as that change is happening. And those that have been there out on the fire line in some of these wildlands and worked some of these extremely difficult shifts, we start to get a little long-winded and soft-eyed when recalling these events. So I think there's a special recognition that to bear witness to such catastrophe, drama, or a natural process, depending on perspective, is a pretty rare allowance, and I'm certainly privileged to be able to take part in this.